We definitely had strong evidence going into both of these separate trials, but no case is ever perfect. There's always something that you wish you had that you don't have. When I received word that he was involved in this shooting, and then I saw the evidence that we had against him, knowing that we could go forward, we're going to get him. He did this, and we're going to get him.
Stephen Glover was expecting the white Toyota minivan that pulled briefly into the front yard of his friend Corey Singleton. But the vehicle's two occupants call off the deal to buy marijuana from Glover, claiming they saw law enforcement in the Stonewood Drive area of St. Helena Island and didn't want to risk arrest. So as the minivan drove off, Glover remained in his Nissan Maxima, and Singleton went inside his house to try on some new clothes. But as soon as Singleton was out of sight, the minivan turns around and returns to the yard. Singleton hears Glover honk his car horn. At first, he thinks it's his friend signaling that he is about to leave, so he steps outside to tell him goodbye. Then as he steps onto his front porch and sees the van has returned, he briefly thinks that perhaps the deal is on again. But as Singleton makes his way down the steps and into the yard, he and Glover see that the passenger, a man Singleton does not know, is brandishing a Draco, which is a 9mm pistol with a high-capacity magazine fashioned to resemble a miniature AK-47 rifle. Then, the driver emerges from the vehicle as well. He points a 9mm Taurus handgun at Glover and immediately begins shooting. With both men's guns blazing, Glover's vehicle is riddled with more than 30 rounds. Glover himself is shot 7 times and soon lay dead just outside the driver's side door. Glover was unarmed. Singleton fumbles for the gun in his waistband, takes cover on the ground behind Glover's vehicle, and tries to shoot the attacker's feet. He gets off a few rounds, but when his gun jams, he knows he has just one chance, and that is to run for it. Miraculously, he manages to scamper away to a neighbor's house. He implores her to call 911. In the background, dispatchers can hear Singleton relaying information to his neighbor. That includes the name of the customer who had arranged the sale with Glover.
You know who it is? They call him Glizzy.
And Beaufort County Sheriff's Office authorities know exactly who Glizzy is. That's the street name for Shannon Talon Preston, who turned 21 just a week prior. Preston has no criminal record, but he has been a suspect in other crimes and is a known gang member. Preston lives in the Eddings Point area of St. Helena Island, just more than 5 minutes from Singleton's house. So as several officers streak to Singleton's home on Stonewood Lane just after 1 p.m. on November 18, 2020, several more descend upon the dilapidated mobile home where Preston lives as well. The white Toyota van, which belongs to Preston's mother, is parked out front. Although the home's occupants are asked to exit, they file out only after a tense delay. When Preston emerges, he has little to say to investigators except to remind him that not long ago, he got off for charges related to a double murder on Ladies Island. He claims he has been home all day playing video games, except for a brief trip to a nearby restaurant and to a convenience store to purchase a drink. The other men who are there at the home can vouch for him, he tells investigators. They should also check the ankle monitor he is wearing, a condition of his bond for another alleged crime. That will verify he was nowhere near the crime scene, he assures them.
Bro, I didn't even leave the house, so I gonna try this, bro. We done met before, bro.
Who?
Me and you.
Yeah,
from the last
I know.
case,
Yeah,
bro.
I know.
Like, come on, man.
Okay, you want to talk to me?
Nah, yeah, well, what's the talk about? Like, come on, bro. I'm on a monitor. I just beat the other case. What is it to talk about, bro?
That's what we're here to find out.
They got my location. There's nothing to talk about. You can call the ankle monitor people. They'll tell you where I'm at. Like, I'm not lying, bro. And then the monitor not gonna lie. Like, come on, man. Ain't no way they're trying to lock me up again for this, bro.
Finally, however, Preston admits he was at the scene, although he contends he never fired a gun.
Bro. I ain't shoot nobody, bro.
Okay, well, walk me through it. What happened?
You gonna get some weed, man. And then do the inside with it.
3 other men also emerged from Preston's house on Eddings Point, including 20-year-old Xavier Mayoshi Polite of Seabrook, the passenger in the minivan, and the second gunman. At first, he doesn't have much to say either. But back on Stonewood Lane, where Glover lay dead, Singleton is telling investigators what went down. He also tells deputies that he has a security camera, and he gives footage to investigators that corroborates his story. Confronted with a still image from that video, Polite is now more forthcoming. He admits he is one of the men seen the footage, but claims he was only defending himself because Preston told him that Glover had a gun. Polite also claims he only shot his weapon because Preston fired his first. Nonetheless, both men are charged with 1 count each of murder, attempted murder, and possession of a weapon during commission of a violent crime. Mary Jones of the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office will prosecute the case, and she has convincing evidence to work with. The weapons Preston and Polite used are found in Preston's home and matched to the shell casings recovered at the scene. Analysts detect gunshot residue on both men's hands and in the white Toyota van. Singleton identifies Preston from a photo lineup, and the pattern of shell casings found at the scene are consistent with his version of events. They also find on Preston's cell phone a video of him and Polite riding in the Toyota van and brandishing the guns they used to kill Glover. There are problems with the case too, starting with the video surveillance Singleton provided to law enforcement.
The surveillance video was good. It wasn't perfect though. There definitely were portions missing that we couldn't account for. It was run through Blink, which is an Amazon-based company. It's like any other web-based, in the cloud storage type of home surveillance. He had it and it was working at the time, but unfortunately, we're not really sure why, but unfortunately it wasn't one continuous stream of video. It was different clips. We had videos leading up to the shooting and we had the aftermath of the shooting, but we did not have the shots fired on the surveillance. The shooters were at a distance, it was somewhat blurry, and you could not identify faces.
And in proceedings against Polite, she can show jurors the statement he made to Sheriff's Office investigators, but he continues to claim self-defense and cannot be forced to testify. As a result, Polite and Preston will be tried separately, complicating their prosecution. Then, Jones' case suffers its most serious blow. On July 16, 2022, Singleton is found unresponsive in his apartment in Pooler, Georgia, where he now lives. He has died of a fentanyl overdose.
We had already started prepping for Preston. It takes away my only eyewitness. I now have no eyewitness on scene who can identify who these 2 men were that killed Stephen Glover and tried to kill Corey Singleton. Corey had also identified Glizzy, who we later learn is Shannon Preston, in a 6-pack photo lineup. And that is now inadmissible evidence that I can't tell the jury about because I don't have Corey to put on the stand to do the same in court.
With the news of Singleton's death, Jones must re-examine and restructure her case. She starts by chipping away at Preston's supposed alibi.
At the time of the shooting, Shannon Preston was on a GPS ankle monitor for another charge that he had pending at the time. During his interview with the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, in an attempt to outsmart the investigators that are talking to him, he tells them, check my ankle monitor, it'll show you that I wasn't there. Well, they do, of course. They follow up with that, and Shannon Preston's ankle monitor had been dead for days and days in advance of this. And he knew that. He knew he hadn't charged his monitor. He knew that it was dead. I could not tell the jury that, though. The jury was not allowed to know that he was on an ankle monitor at the time of the shooting. It was too prejudicial. Shannon does talk about going to Parker's, so his statement, while not entirely false, it was mixed with bits and pieces of truth. He talks about how they went to buy marijuana. He talks about how they went to the Foolish Frog and they went to Parker's. And then we found evidence of them going to Parker's at the 152 Eddings Point address. We also had the surveillance from Parker's that showed Shannon Preston getting out of the car and going inside of the store to purchase these drinks that we later find. The timing of the Parker's video was 1:20 in the afternoon, and the 911 call came out about 1:03 that afternoon. So it was just enough time for him to leave 70 Stonewood, go to Eddings Point, and then go back to the Parker's gas station. Master Sergeant Drayson is able to get a still shot from the surveillance video. He prints it out and he shows it to both Xavier Polite and Shannon Preston. It essentially, you can see the look on their faces of we're caught when they see that surveillance video, that surveillance photo. They still don't want to admit they're there, but finally both of them do concede and say they were there and we shot.
Jones also dismantles any potential self-defense claim.
There was evidence that Corey Singleton did shoot back. There was absolutely shell casings that matched Corey's gun that day. But the problem with self-defense for both of these defendants is that in South Carolina, there are 4 parts of self-defense, and in order to successfully assert self-defense, the defendant has to meet all 4 of them. And the first is without fault and bringing on the difficulty. Right there, right out the bat, they both fail because they both made a conscious decision to bring a loaded gun to a drug deal.
In October 2022, Jones calls 20 witnesses during 3 days of testimony in Shannon Preston's trial. The jury finds him guilty of all charges, and Circuit Court Judge Bentley Price sentences him to 37 years in prison. It is a measure of comeuppance for Preston, who earlier boasted to investigators about escaping his most serious
You're gonna lie
portion
about
of
that as well? Lie after lie after lie.
In 2017, Preston was charged as an accessory after the fact of murder for his alleged role in the deaths of Beaufort residents Chaz and Robert Blanding. 3 co-defendants pleaded guilty to charges associated with the case, but a jury failed to reach a verdict in the murder trial of a 4th co-defendant. That defendant was not retried.
The state had to dismiss those charges because we had witnesses who proved to be far less than credible. We have the burden of beyond a reasonable doubt, and ethically I cannot go forward on a case if there's not evidence there to prove that person guilty of that crime beyond a reasonable doubt, and it wasn't there for his original set of charges. When I received word that he was involved in this shooting, and then I saw the evidence that we had against him, knowing that we could go forward, and there was multitude of evidence proving that he was the one that actually committed this crime, it was almost a sigh of relief that we're going to get him. He did this and we're going to get him.
In separate proceedings in June 2023, Polite is found guilty of all 3 charges as well, and like Preston, he is sentenced to 37 years in prison.
Xavier Polite wasn't known to the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office or to local law enforcement like Shannon Preston was. However, he made the conscious decision to associate with somebody like Shannon Preston, and he got on the stand and he said that. And he made the decision to go that day carrying this Draco 9mm that he had on him that day. That clearly was a gun that he was proud to carry that day. He certainly started off with a bang and was just as culpable and just as guilty as Shannon Preston.
Jones is a member of the Career Criminal Unit, which prosecutes the circuit's most violent and habitual offenders. The team has earned convictions against 455 of the 494 defendants it has prosecuted since its formation in 2009.